The NHC said that man was hospitalized on April 28 after developing a fever and other symptoms, but he wasn't diagnosed until last Friday, May 28. Luckily, he was stable enough to be discharged from the hospital, and other infections weren't detected among his close contacts. With public health anxiety at an all-time high due to the COVID-19 pandemic, it's understandable why news of a virus newly detected in a human may be alarming for some. Here's what you need to know, and why experts don't believe this is a major concern. Load error H10N3 is a form of avian influenza, aka bird flu, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC. These viruses normally infect wild aquatic birds, as well as domestic poultry and other bird and animal species, but they don't normally infect humans, though rare cases of infection have been reported per the CDC. In those rare cases, saliva, mucus, or feces from infected birds get into a person's eyes, nose, or mouth. These, again, very rare, infections normally happen after unprotected contact with infected birds or surfaces contaminated with avian influenza viruses, the CDC says. As far as the new H10N3 strain goes, because it's only been reported in one person, there isn't much information on it right now. Waleed Javaid, MD, Director of Infection Prevention and Control at Mount Sinai downtown in New York, tells given what we know right now, that only one person has been infected, we don't need to sound any alarms. One case. Probably too premature to start worrying about it, says Dr. Javaid, who adds that the CDC hasn't issued any sort of warning about the strain. Flash floods leave path of destruction in Texas. The Indianapolis 500 has one of the biggest crowds since pandemic began. Day of Remembrance. 100 years since Tulsa Race Massacre. Americans remember the fallen on Memorial Day. Gunman wanted for mass shooting in Miami. Investigators search for missing boy in Iowa on location. May 31, 2021. Possible witness sketch released in case of Dulce Maria Alaves. Grieving dad of Florida mass shooting victim interrupts news conference. Biden attends Memorial Day ceremony. Manhunt for Miami mass shooters. Man arrested for planning mass shooting. Police. Parents warned of potentially dangerous TikTok challenge. 7 presumed dead after plane crash near Nashville, Tennessee. At least 2 dead. Nearly 24 wounded in mass shooting in Miami-Dade. 8 injured in Colorado steel mill explosion. Currently, there are few avian influenza strains known to infect humans: H5, H7, and H9, usually in the form of H5N1 and H7N9 viruses, per the CDC. And while they're rare in the general population, these infections happen most commonly among those who work with poultry. Amesh Adalja, MD, senior scholar at Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security, tells it's also important to remember that context is key regarding bird flu strains, Dr. Adalja says, adding that infectious disease experts are constantly monitoring for new strains that might pose a public health threat. That said, it's possible that this one case of the H10N3 strain will be the only human case of the infection, but only time will tell, says Dr. Javaid. Just generally speaking, based on what experts know about bird flu overall, the symptoms often look like a typical influenza-like illness ranging from mild to severe infections, per the CDC. That means symptoms can include avian influenza viruses, however, cannot be diagnosed by signs and symptoms alone. The CDC says laboratory testing is needed, usually through swabs collected from the upper respiratory tract of an infected person. As for treatment of avian influenza viruses, the CDC recommends what's known as a neuraminidase inhibitor, like oseltamivir, peramivir, and zanamivir, a type of antiviral drug that can block reproduction of the virus. And the best way to avoid avian influenza viruses is to avoid exposure like direct or close contact with infected poultry, though, again, that is not an issue in the US, because the strain is not a very common virus, as Philip Clays, Regional Laboratory Coordinator of the Food and Agriculture Organization's Emergency Center for Transboundary Animal Diseases at the Regional Office for Asia and the Pacific, told the But right now, since experts aren't concerned about wide-scale spread, and because they don't know if the virus can be spread via person-to-person contact, there's nothing to be worried about at this time, says Dr. Javaid. Knowing about this is important, he says, but right now, it's more of a wait, watch, and see.